Hello and welcome to this podcast, Little Girls Aren't Taught This. I am your host, Self-Love Lydia, and this is a self-love podcast unlike no other. Within this podcast, we will go into all of the things that we should have been taught as little girls that would have helped us feel empowered, connected, and just unapologetic as we grew into women. I am the queen of deep transformations. I am on a mission to impact women around the world with self-love, and I am here to teach you how to be unapologetic and just step into your power. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello my loves, and welcome to this week's podcast episode. This one is a little bit different because I decided to pull a coaching video that I have in one of my private Facebook groups. It's called the Embodied Babes Hub, and I was listening back to it and it was just full of absolute nuggets of wisdom, and I was like, this would honestly make such a good podcast episode. So instead of me trying to record it again, I just simply downloaded it and I am going to put it as this week's podcast episode. It's all around self-worth and ways that you can increase your self-worth, which is amazing. One of the things I wanted to tell you about before we dive into the episode is that on February the 28th, the last day of the month, I am running a free masterclass, Coming Home to Yourself. This masterclass is for anybody who is looking to increase their self-love, understand how they can come back to themselves in times of uncertainty or overwhelm or anxiety, or when they are going through something difficult, you know, how they can begin to be their own anchor and how they can come back to themselves time and time again. Which essentially, if you obviously listen to everything I talk about and everything I teach with self-love, that essentially is the essence of what it is for me. So that masterclass will be happening at 7 p.m. It will be live, and then the doors to the Divine Transformation open, which is my 12-week signature self-love program. It is epic. It has impacted 40 women around the world, and it is just ever growing, and the impact is life-changing even to this day for women who done it like 2 years ago. So I'm really, really excited about that. So I put the link in the show notes if you want to grab your space in the masterclass. Hopefully I see some of you there. And hopefully you enjoy this week's episode. If you do enjoy it, please leave me a review. You know the score on Apple if you feel called to, or share the podcast on Instagram and tag me at selflove.lydia. So let's jump into it. I hope you enjoy it, and I shall see you next week for the next episode. Are we live? Good. No, we're not live yet. I always do this every time. Oh, okay. We are live. Welcome to this week's live coaching session. I am excited to talk through this one, to be honest, because I feel like it's something that's really in my heart and in my soul right now. So let me know. There isn't anybody on at the moment. I'm just assuming it's telling people that I'm live. But if you watch this back on the replay, how are you feeling? Scores on the doors. Is it a 1? Is it a 10? Is it a 5? How are you feeling on this Monday morning? So I just want to come on and talk about self-worth, and I want to break it down into little ways that we can begin to, or that you guys can begin to work on self-love and just move towards feeling more worthy. This morning is a delicious smoothie, by the way. Sometimes I love a smoothie in the morning, and sometimes I'm all about like full-on eggs and sausages and all of the things, like a healthy version, obviously. But today, I don't know, I just woke up and I was so hungry. But anyway, self-worth. The reason why this is really coming up for me at the moment is because no matter what level or no matter what area I am at with my business or my personal development,
I hate that word, personal development, or like my self-love, I always notice the self-worth comes up. So I always notice there's a level of uncomfortability around self-worth, feeling worthy to step into a new level, or feeling worthy, or questioning if I'm worthy enough to achieve the things that I want to achieve when I step up into that next level. And I feel like that links to the mindset work and, the work, the embodied work that I do, because at every point when that comes up, it's about me going deeper within and looking at what's coming up and why that's coming up and how I can shift and move that and understand that. So it's never ending. And I think also that's another thing that people assume, isn't it, of like self-love and self-worth and all of this work that we do. We always assume that there's an end point, and there's not. Like, we know there's no end point to this work. And yeah, it just feels like really relevant and really prominent. And I know for a lot of you guys, self-worth will be one of the biggest things for you. You may have areas in your life where you feel totally worthy, like you feel worthy in your relationship because all of the things are good, like there's trust there, that your partner loves you, your love language is met, your needs are met, so you feel totally worthy and deserving in that relationship. But there may also be a way that lack of self-worth is showing up in your career or your job, or wanting to make moves and go into something else. It will show up in different areas, and also it's interchangeable, isn't it? So self-worth, how you feel right now in the moment in relation to one aspect of your life, well, within a few weeks that could shift and that could change, and you may not feel worthy in relation to that. So very important and feels very relevant to discuss today. So there's 3 ways I want to unpack self-worth and how you can begin to move towards that, because a lot of people just think, I don't even know what that means. Like, I know I want to feel worthy, but I don't actually know how I begin to achieve that. Because it's this notion, isn't it, of feeling. It's an energy of feeling good enough. It's an energy of knowing that you're good enough. But it's the actions that you implement and the behaviours you implement every single day that allow you to connect to that energy and feel that way. So they're the things that we're going to unpack. So one of the first ways you can begin to tap into self-worth and begin to strengthen your sense of self-worth is making decisions that you know will align with your sense of self-worth. And this is a big one because it's not always easy. It's not easy to make some decisions and move in ways that are pushing you towards feeling worthy. An example, if you're in a relationship and you don't feel worthy enough of that relationship, so the example would be, let's say you're in a relationship and you're not happy in that relationship. You may feel like you're not worthy enough of coming out of that relationship for X, Y, Z, whatever reasons. So a decision could actually be that you decide you are worthy enough and you want to follow what your heart desires, and that means that you have to cut the cords on that relationship. So that was just an example, but obviously it's an example of often the decisions that we make when we're on this journey and we're on this path. They are not always easy. And the decisions that we make when we're trying to come back to ourselves and strengthen our sense of self-worth, they feel very uncomfortable because it means often that we are using our voice for the first time, or we are saying things that we may never have said before because we've just not felt like we can, we've not felt good enough to express ourselves, we've felt fearful of judgment, all of these things that come up when we think about using our voice and stepping into our truest selves and what that looks like and what we desire. So making decisions based on your worth, like what your heart truly wants. And these decisions are as simple as deciding that you want a rest day from exercise because you know that your body is worthy enough of having a rest. You don't have to constantly push it to the limit. Knowing that you are worthy enough of having a treat or whatever it is that you would classify like your favourite meal or a glass of wine without the guilt associated to it, knowing that you are worthy enough of doing that and making that decision to order that food that you would never usually order, to have that glass of wine without the guilt attached to it and without worrying about the calories midweek. Then you get the bigger decisions like deciding to apply for a new job and deciding to maybe quit your job and follow a passion that you have, deciding to end a relationship, deciding to move. All of these decisions that we make, they come back to knowing that we are worthy enough to make the decisions. And the energy of self-worth shows up in the smallest of ways, and it also shows up in the big ways, in the big decisions that we make. So the invitation here is begin to think, what decisions can you begin to make that are aligning with what your heart truly desires? Because when you begin to do that, you know, and self-love and self-worth are so interchangeable. Like they are basically like so interwoven and so intertwined. And when you strengthen your sense of self-worth, you are coming back to that alignment with self-love because you are choosing yourself. And that's what it's about. That's what self-worth is about. And that's what self-love is about. So where can you begin to make those decisions? And if it feels too much to make uncomfortable decisions at the moment that are a massive stretch, well then, where can you make the smaller decisions? Where can you begin to use your voice and actually say, no, I know that I'm worthy enough of this? And even if it feels uncomfortable, where can you show up for yourself, which is point 2, and push through that level of uncomfortability? That's also very important. I hope this is resonating. Good morning to whoever's watching. I hope this is resonating for you. Some other decisions and, you know, things that I hear often from my clients are losing people, cutting people off, ending friendships. Very uncomfortable, like very, very uncomfortable. However, these decisions are often made because you begin to notice that you are worthy of a more loving, supportive friendship. You notice maybe that person in your life is gaslighting you. That person is not being there for you how you are there for them. You don't feel like it's a reciprocation of energy and respect with that person in your life. So you make a decision that you're worthy of more than that in a friendship, and you decide to cut the cord on that. Very difficult. These decisions aren't easy, but these decisions are so important because if a decision was easy, that wouldn't be forcing us into a space of growth, would it? And actually that wouldn't be forcing us to question what we actually want and how deserving we feel in the moment when we're doing these things. And if we retreat away from the uncomfortability, essentially you are retreating away from yourself. You are retreating away from what your heart desires, what your intuition may be telling you, what will allow you to feel worthy. And you are turning your back on yourself. So yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's leaning into that edge. It's leaning into the uncomfortability that actually will shift and just absolutely change everything when it comes to your self-worth and your self-love. Another big one for women as well is like investing. Making a decision to invest in yourself, making a decision to say, I want to go and see a therapist and I want to pay for that. I want to work on my self-love, so I want to invest in a coach. I deserve to be in this program and change my life. Whatever form of investment it is for you, it's about making that decision and showing the fuck up for yourself and knowing that you are worthy of doing these things, which leads me into point 2 nicely. The other way you can begin to strengthen your sense of self-worth is show up for yourself. Like, so many times we shrink ourselves, so many times we retreat and we pull back because we don't feel like we are worthy enough of speaking our truth. So we don't feel like we deserve to have a voice. You know, we feel all of these things, and instead of actually saying how we feel, and instead of voicing that, and instead of showing up in the way that helps us and makes us feel good and makes us feel like we are worthy and we have a place and we are allowed to shine, we retreat back. We agree with people. We choose the easier option because exactly that, it feels easier. So I hope this is resonating. Please let me know if it is. Morning, resonating. Good. So glad, Holly. So glad. So showing up for yourself. Again, subtle ways you can begin to practice this. And then that transpires into the big moments when you need to show up and you need to use your voice and you need to truly stand in your power and stand in your worth. So the invitation again is, where can you begin to show up for yourself? Where can you begin to feel into that knowing that you are worthy enough? And that could be an investment. When you invest and when you put time into yourself and you exchange money for that, you are making a decision that is aligning with your self-worth, your self-love, and you are showing the fuck up for yourself because you know that you are worthy enough of making that decision and showing up to your full potential, following it through, making the moves, putting your all into something. Don't be afraid to put your all into something. And I know that's difficult because there's fear there around, well, what if I fail? What if people judge me? What if it doesn't go to plan? I know what that feels like. But when we begin to tune into our self-worth and we begin to strengthen our self-worth, it is essentially about that. It's about knowing that in every single moment we are worthy. Every moment we are worthy. And showing up for ourselves in the moments when we don't feel like we're worthy. And I know that can sound a little bit of a, what? That's such a contradiction. But it's actually not. Like, it's so important to show up for yourself on the full spectrum of all of your humanness and all of your sides. So begin to move through that. So the invitation is, again, ask yourself, where am I not showing up for myself? When am I abandoning myself? When am I choosing to retreat into safety rather than lean into possibility and uncomfortability and lean into being there for myself? So I hope this little part about showing up for yourself is resonating. And that piece around, where are you abandoning yourself? You know, that's a big question. That's a big question to feel into. Where am I abandoning myself? Where am I letting myself down? Where am I choosing to pull away rather than lean in? And what is the impact of that on your self-worth? What is the impact of that on your sense of self? You are the one person you have in this world. So you need to show up for yourself. And show up for yourself when you're a mess. Show up for yourself when you don't feel good. Show up for yourself when you feel like it's all going to shit. But show up and be there for yourself. Meet your own needs, because the more you do that, the more you are leaning into this belief of I am worthy. Regardless, I am worthy. So the third little tip I want to bring in is know that you are enough right now. This is another tool to begin to work towards our sense of self-worth. Know that you are enough right now. It's not about being enough when this happens or that happens. It's just about connecting and coming back to that every day and reminding yourself that you are enough. You were enough when you came into this world. You didn't have to prove yourself. You didn't have to prove how beautiful you were as a person in your energy. I mean, you didn't have to prove that you were worthy of love. You were just given it. So connecting to that, and that's why inner child work is so powerful when it comes to self-love and self-worth, because when you connect back to that little girl and you think, would I treat this little girl how I treat myself now? Would I turn my back on her? Would I make decisions that I know that she doesn't want me to make, that don't feel good for her? Would I make her prove herself over and over and over again? Would I make her do more, be more, have more before I truly opened myself up and allowed myself to love her, allowed her to feel the feeling of being loved and accepted? And I'm guaranteeing the answer is no, you would not do that with a little girl. You would not do that with the little version of yourself. So it's about bringing it back to that and questioning, why do we do that now? Why are you doing that now with your adult, the adult version of you? Because you are still worthy, you are still here, you are still beautiful. So tip number 3 for leaning into that or strengthening that sense of self-worth is knowing that you are just enough right now. And coming back to yourself and back to that alignment to self-love when things feel like they're going to shit, or when you don't feel like you're showing up as your best self, or maybe you act in a way that you don't agree with. Maybe you're triggered. You know, you're human. Maybe you have a day where your anxiety is bad. You're human. And I spoke about this before. I spoke about this on podcast. I speak about this in my group. I speak about this on Instagram. So I've probably spoken about it on here. This is what makes you human. This is you in all your wholeness. It's not about trying to be perfect. It's not about trying to achieve all of these external things before knowing that you are worthy. It's just about coming back and reminding yourself every day, you're enough right now as you are. Let me know if this is resonating, and if you watch on the replay, let me know if this resonates. So the way you can begin to lean into that and practice that more, like knowing you're enough, it's just reminding yourself every day. So whether you do that in your journaling, and then let's say a thought comes up of no, you're not enough, it's about taking the time to unpack that and then asking, is that 100% true? Because nothing's 100% true. So that means if it's not 100% true, and I spoke about this morning on my Instagram, if it's not 100% true is when we open up the scope for possibility, and that's where the magic trickles in. Because if your belief in your story playing out is not 100% true, okay, then what's the other option? If you know in your heart it's not 100% black and white true, well then what's the other option? And the other option could be, I feel like I'm not worthy 70% of the time, 30% of the time I know that I'm worthy. I know that actually I am really, truly worthy, but there's all of these layers that stop me from feeling worthy. Okay, well, what are these layers? Go into them. And this is where the mindset work becomes deeper and more expansive, when you use it as a tool to deepen your sense of self-awareness, when you use it as a tool to explore your own internal world. You know, the affirmations and the gratitudes and the journaling prompts that we get, beautiful stuff. But this is where the power lies in the journey, when you're asking very intentional questions, when you're noticing the thought that's coming up in terms of your worthiness, and then showing up for yourself in that moment and challenging that. Challenge it to bring you back to that knowing that you are enough. And this may not be an easy shift. This may not occur overnight. By all means, it won't. Because it's often so deeply ingrained within us that we're not worthy enough. And like I said before, there's so many different ways. It's so nuanced in how that shows up in our lives. Like it manifests in a multitude of areas. So we are constantly in ebb and flow of I'm worthy, then that energy comes in that pulls us back to not feeling good enough. And that's when it's important to show up and challenge that and rewrite that story and tap into that possibility. This is not 100% true. And all you need is that 1% of possibility to begin to shine that magic in, to begin to bring that magic in, to begin to bring that energy of self-love in. So even if your belief when you're exploring these things feels heavy and it feels uncomfortable, really, really tap in and try and find, or really, really tap into that question. Is this 100% true? Like, is there any other option? Is there any other scenario? Or is this exactly how it is? Because thoughts are not concrete. Thoughts are fluid. My thought and your thought on you would be 100% different. Some days how I feel about myself and how you feel about me, or your perception of me, is totally different. So if in my head, I believe it's 100% true, there's always an option to ask somebody else and they will give you another perspective that will allow you to see that this is not 100% true, because thoughts are always fluid. They move. They shape themselves based on how you're feeling in this moment and what is showing up for you. They are a reaction and a response to the emotion and the belief that's within your body. That's what triggers the thought. So when you feel good, you have good thoughts. When you feel bad, you have bad thoughts. So really use that as a tool for empowerment. So just to recap, the 3 ways you can begin to feel into your sense of, strengthen your sense of self-worth. I am enough as I am now, as an affirmation. Yes, I absolutely adore that. And a really, really powerful affirmation that I have is, I choose to lean into possibility over shrink. Let me find the exact word. I choose to lean into possibility rather than shrink into fear. That's an affirmation I've been using like most days, and it's really powerful because it links back to that choice. So make the decision. So my decision is that every single day I remind myself that I have the choice to lean into possibility. I don't have to reside in fear. I don't have to reside in doubt. I don't have to reside in feeling unworthy. There's always that choice to lean into that possibility, and that possibility comes when we ask ourselves, is that belief 100% true, when we show up for ourselves. So the recap is, show up for yourself is number 1, and I've discussed ways you can begin to do that. Knowing you're enough, like, come back to that, know that you are enough right now, strip it all back, strip all the external things that you're trying to get for validation and you're trying to achieve to feel enough. Strip it all back and just know that regardless of what you ever achieve, if you don't feel worthy enough inside you, you are never going to feel that sense of self-worth. And make decisions that align with you feeling worthy. And if that's uncomfortable, it's part of the process. But it's about connecting back to your heart. It's about connecting back to your essence. It's just truly about dropping into yourself and asking yourself, what do you desire? What's not working for you anymore? What have you outgrown? Where do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? ask yourself those questions, and when you have the answers, move and make the decisions, because you are worthy enough to do that. So I hope this has been beneficial. I actually love this live. I feel like we got a lot from it. Thank you so much for watching.